crystal ball's not that good.
And I think that's what I was. He just said it really, kind of led me to it. But I guess I would recommend being aware of the publishing business. You're so focused on the creative aspect of it, which is natural. But I think I know a lot of writers by virtue of what I do online, and the ones who succeed tend to have great insight into how the mechanics of publishing work, and they keep up with it. And it's something you need to keep up with because it's changing so rapidly. So understanding who the editors are, and who the agents are, and what's going on at what imprint, and which editor just went where, and keeping up with the web, which is like super difficult because it's growing faster than like the speed of sound. It's every day there's new blogs popping up and things happening, and but all that stuff's important. And having that kind of awareness in addition to the writing can be of huge benefit. So I think that's what I would say.
But the writing comes first.
But the writing comes first, exactly.
So, does anyone have any questions? We'd like to take some if you do. Go ahead.
What's the difference?
Sorry, and how much time?
Like 5.
5 or 10.
What's the difference between a book agent, a lit agent, and a lit manager?
So the question is, what's the difference between a book agent, a lit agent, and a manager?
Lit
A lit
manager.
and a manager.
Not coming from the entertainment side.
5%.
And percentage.
A book agent, lit agent is the same thing. When we talk about book agents, they're literary agents, lit agents. That's synonymous.
You mean versus Hollywood? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, would you go to New York? Would you you're selling a book. Would you want to go to someone in Los Angeles, or would you want to go get somebody in New York to handle your book stuff?
The question is now, do you go to New York or LA?
Or LA. And look, generally it's going to be New York. Most of the big publishing agencies are there. The publishing houses are there, the editors are there. But there are, there are good and respectable agents here in LA. They're on the West Coast. You don't have to absolutely have a New York agent, although I'd say 90% of people should
I
move
will tell
on.
you that I have entertainment agents here in Los Angeles, and they couldn't handle my book. And once my book was published, we then went back to my film and television agents because they handle book to film licensing.
Right.
So the book agents at the big Hollywood agencies generally don't do publishing. They do, like, once it's published, they then take it to the next place, if that's a place it wants to go.
Like Endeavor has a lit agent department, but they're not really book.
It's not the same
They're
thing.
the film
It's
television thing.
well, there are. I mean, there are actually
William
book
Morris
agents
is
at
book
Endeavor.
agents.
Yeah.
Look, the big houses
They do.
have it. ICM, William Morris, Endeavor, all those. But if you think about the real sort of boutique, really specific book literary agents like Sterling Lord, Eric Simonoff, guys
But
like
that
that
said,
in New York.
there are some great literary agents at William Morris. I mean, there are some great agents at William Morris who do
Terrific.
fiction.
Yep.
So it depends on where you are and what you're looking for.
Like I said, my answer to you ultimately is, if you know the kind of book you've written, you're going to think about other people who have written similar books, and you're going to find out who represents them. And that's more important than what coast the agent lives on. Who's had success with that kind of material is going to be the best way to go. And I'm not aware of any literary managers on the book side. I don't know, maybe Salman Rushdie has one, but nobody who I know or run with has literary managers. When I was a screenwriter, I had a screenwriting agent and a manager, but it has not seemed, thank God, because commissions carrying over into the film side.
And follow up, and the commissions are 5 or 10, or what are they asking for? Generally.
Remember
It's
what
15,
mine was.
actually.
15?
I think it's 15 for both, yeah. 15 for both.
15 commission for books. Is that
Yeah.
right? Sue?
I don't know if I think Mark might have mentioned this earlier. I was wondering if any of you were represented by Wiley, or if do you have a reaction to
Questions
Wiley
about
the other
Andrew
day?
Wiley and if anyone's represented.
Is anyone with Wiley? No, I was going to say what my Wiley story was, but
You wanna tell
we
Sue later?
can save that if there are any more interesting sort of first how-to or procedural questions, because that's probably more.
Okay. Would you suggest, if you have a piece, would you suggest doing a spec, a couple chapters, or would you just complete the book and then submit it back?
Is it fiction or non-fiction?
Either way.
Well, it's different.
Is it different? I don't know.
You're not going to sell a novel. It's very unlikely for you to sell a novel with a synopsis and a few and some chapters.
The question is, should you do
Should do a spec sample, and again, we don't use the term spec in the publishing world. That's a film term. If you're writing fiction, you're going to write a novel manuscript and you're going to try to shop that. If you write 100 pages that are really, really kick-ass and you think you want to get an agent excited, you can try, but especially for a first-timer, they're going to want to see if you can finish the book. Nonfiction, as Bert talked about, that's all done through proposals. You don't write that book. You write the proposal for the book you want and a sample chapter or two, and hope you can sell the proposal, generally. So.
Anybody else? Yeah.
I was curious, Brooke talked a little bit about what she's looking at for a second book. I was wondering what the other guys have to say about their experience having written a first book, having had some success. Brad talked a little bit about how, even if you write a book in 4 months, it's been 8 years perhaps in the making of that somehow at some level. What's it been like for you, having finished a book and then trying to write the second?
So, what's it like having finished and trying to write the second book?
Trying to find the time. It's always a battle. For me personally, like I've created this site, I've been teaching, and have just been battling to get through the manuscript. I was telling Mark on the way in here. So, I think with writers, unless you're extremely fortunate and you're able to just focus on writing, you're juggling multiple things. My first book took me several years to write. I would anticipate the second one would be the same. But along the way, with this, with the website and with the community that I've sort of built, I think that's a positive thing. I feel like it gives me, or hopefully it will give me momentum when that book does come out. I've built this network. I've built a platform that I can sort of promote the book on. But it's always a challenge. Like I forget who it was. Maybe it was like Philip Roth or somebody like that who you think like has mastered it, And it was like every book on page 1 is the same thing, where you're just like, oh shit. It doesn't get easier, I think maybe you get better, hopefully, but it doesn't get easier. At least that's been my experience.
My students in the class have heard the story about Salman Rushdie in his interview with the Great Paris Review interview series. Talks about that impossible sort of fear of that first blank page. Like, if he's got it, it's good enough for the rest of us. In terms of the second book, for me, it's a writer friend of mine said something really interesting, which was he said that he actually loved the idea of second books because all of that debut pressure was off you now, and so that you could just really sort of do what you want to do, strut your stuff, and go out there with it. And for me, because I sort of took a reverse path, my first book was not, generally speaking, autobiographical, but my second book really deals with things that are much closer to home. So it's been a little more difficult to write and to deal with the emotional experience of working through that. So it's taken a little longer than I would like. But, as I said back earlier, that idea of sort of taking that care with each sentence the way I didn't do the first time, I think it's going to be a much better book when it's done. So, second book?
I'm struggling with mine, so I don't really have anything to say except I'm struggling. But I think just to keep in mind that, you're doing it for yourself at the end of the day. And, whether you sell it, a lot of people don't sell their first novels. They put it in a drawer and then they move on and write their second novel. So if that's your situation, then that's very common and it's something to keep in mind.
I know, with my second play, I had to pretend that I didn't know how to write a play. Like, I wrote a play, and it took a while, and it did very well, and then I sat down to write a second play, and it was kind of Zen mind, beginner's mind. As soon as I thought I knew what I was doing, the writing would stop. So I just pretended I didn't know how to write a play and made it all up again.
Right, well, I think we need to wrap it up, but thank you, Brooke Berman.